This is my year 2000 Honda Civic Coupe. It's a 1.6 engine. It's the non-VTEC, and I've had it for a few months, and it's been incredibly reliable, as you'd expect from a Honda Civic. It's the last year they made this shape. Since buying the car, I've had to do a few things to it. I've had various parking dents taken out down the side, as you can see here. It's pretty straight. And if I go along the other side here, yeah, and being black, it's not the best colour for hiding things like scratches and scrapes. As you can probably see here, there's a few, and yeah, I mean, I was never going to expect a car of this age to be completely immaculate, but I'm just very grateful I was able to find it. I bought it on eBay, and I can just show you the engine. I mean, as you can see, that engine is pretty much untouched. There's hardly any corrosion. I've been underneath of it. All the bolts shiny. Everything breaks free. Nothing's corroded. The tie rod ends underneath the vehicle, I had the tracking done. They just freed up straight away. One thing that did concern me when I did buy the car is I asked the owner specifically not to start it, because I wanted to hear it start on a cold engine, and you can hide a million things on, you know, when the engine's hot. So, but what was I going to do? I'd driven 2 hours and got a lift there and organised insurance. I had to pay road tax because the vehicle wasn't even taxed. And I mean, the vehicle started fine and I didn't hear any suspicious noises, but heck, I guess I took a little bit of a gamble, because it was I was thinking, well, it's only $2.5 grand or thereabouts, and you know, generally that engine's pretty gonna be okay. But when I got home the next day, I started the car, and there was this horrific squealing noise, which I thought was one of the pulley bearings, because it sounded like a bearing. But when I got the cam belt changed and had the belts, the auxiliary belts and the power steering belts readjusted, the noise has never returned, and that's been on a cold day. So I mean, that's something to bear in mind. I mean, the belt, I just genuinely thought that was a bearing. It sounded awful. But I've put these 15-inch Enzo Cup wheels on them. These are a 35 offset, and I did lots of research about offsets and things. Because the suspension is standard, I didn't really want to go beyond a 35 offset. If I was lowering the car, I could perhaps go to a ET30 or perhaps ET25, because then the wheels would camber in, and we have this law in this country, as probably you do in various other countries, where the tyre has to be within the in line with the body or inside the wing. And I've refurbished these wheels, and that was a really tough job, because I kept having insects and things land on them when I was spraying it, and so I ended up doing them inside the shed. But I think they've come out okay. I've got Toyo tyres on them. They are quite noisy tyres. They're not the best, but heck, there were new tyres on the rims when I bought them, so I'm just going to use them up. I put on this front splitter down below, and this was an absolute nightmare of a job to get on, because it's a sort of cheap aftermarket part, and it ended up being roughly about 1 inch short on the vehicle. And so I had to just fire these 2 self-tappers in here first, and then I had to stretch it round, heat it up with a heat gun, stretch it round and clamp it with a plastic G-clamp or C-clamp, however you want to call it. And I had to pull it into the body and then fire those 2 self-tappers in there. And yeah, that did the trick. You also have to support, if you're ever fitting one of these front splitters, you have to you have to support the bumper. I don't know if I can get the camera under there. There's some brackets, I don't know if you can see them under there, but you have to fit those 2 brackets as well, and they're a bit fiddly to do. There is a YouTube video of someone that's gone through a step of how to fit these front spoilers. But inside the car, I thought I'd just give you a quick look inside. As you can see, the mileage is now 31,000. Wow, I'm nearly on 32,000 already. But yeah, I mean, its air conditioning works perfectly. In the back, you can have a look at the seats. Pretty much unmarked. I mean, everything's... This car was garaged, and the owner, I was told, their other half became quite ill, so couldn't drive. So it was just basically kept in a garage, but and a cover thrown over it. But as you can see from the boot, it's just, you know, it's in very good condition. I did have the rear bumper sprayed because that had some sort of brake fluid spillage over it. But as you can see, yeah, it's in amazing condition. I hope to keep this car for at least 3 years, 4 years. I'm probably going to get it under sealed. I have put some tar on the inside, underbody sealant on the inside of the rear arches, and cleaned those off. I've sprayed grease on the brake lines. There's no corrosion on the brake lines at all. And this model does not have ABS. Something I didn't realise, so yeah, I do have to be a bit careful in the wet and when it's icy and snowy, but I don't drive like a maniac, and I try to look after my cars as best I can. But yeah, I mean, that's it. If you ever can find one of these, I highly recommend getting one. They're very, very good engines. They're as reliable as the universe. I've had BMWs and Audis and lots of engine troubles with those things, despite looking after them, servicing them when they're due, and this thing has just been absolutely spot on. My plans for the future of this thing, I might lower the car a little bit. I might put some coilovers. There's a whole ton of them on eBay for sale. They're only about 200, around that mark. But saying that, on driving to this location, which is where I live locally in the countryside, these roads in England are horrendous. There's camber and steep driveways, and I'm not sure if I'm just going to end up smashing and scraping up the underside of the car. So yeah, but otherwise I'm just going to leave this engine standard and just service it regularly as well. I did a full service on it, changed the fuel filter and everything, because I didn't see any evidence of that being done. But yeah, there you go.